Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating challenge, measuring the invisible. Have you ever stopped to wonder how we actually, scientifically, measure psychological traits? I mean, think about it. Psychological attributes are involved in super simple things like the split second it takes you to react to a stimulus, your reaction time. But they're also driving massively global, abstract concepts like happiness itself. Because this range is just so vast, it's honestly incredibly difficult to even count and specify the sheer number of psychological attributes out there. But, if we want to truly understand human behavior, we've got to start somewhere, right? And that absolute first step is assessment. So here's our quick roadmap for today. 1. What is psychological assessment? 2. Formal versus informal assessment. 3. The 5 psychological domains. And 4. Methods of measurement. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. What is psychological assessment? Let me ask you something. How quickly do you make judgments about the people around you? Probably instantly, right? We all do it. We make statements like, oh, Harish is dominant, all the time. When we say that, we're actually referring to the specific degree of dominance in Harish. That statement? That is our very own basic, everyday psychological assessment of him. But in the scientific world of psychology, an attribute is only said to exist in a person if it can be measured using strict scientific procedures. Assessment literally refers to this precise measurement and evaluation of psychological attributes, and it often uses multiple methods against certain standards of comparison. As we're going to see, there is a huge difference between how you or I might casually assess Harish and how a highly trained psychologist would do it.
Which brings us to Section 2, formal versus informal assessment.
So why aren't our everyday snap judgments good enough for scientific psychology? Well, it's because our everyday assessment of someone like Harish is entirely informal. It varies totally from case to case and from one person to another, which makes it completely open to subjective interpretations. You might think Harish is dominant. I might think he's just really confident. Psychologists, on the other hand, are trained to make formal assessments. These are objective, they're standardized, and they're highly organized. It basically takes all that subjective guesswork right out of the equation.
The really crucial point here is that once a formal assessment is done, we can actively put that information to work. First off, we can accurately predict how someone will probably behave in the future. For example, based on a formal assessment, we might predict that if Harish gets a chance to lead a team, he's most likely going to be an authoritarian leader. Second, and this is the really powerful part, if that predicted outcome isn't what we want, we can intervene. We can actually step in to effect a positive change in his behavior before it even happens.
Now, this brings up a brilliant analogy that illustrates a core concept about the human mind. Psychological attributes are not just linear or unidimensional. Think of it like this. A point occupies absolutely no space. A line is just a mere aggregate of those points. But think of a box. A box occupies actual space, and you can only describe it in terms of its 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. Well, human psychological attributes are exactly like that box. They are incredibly complex and multidimensional. If you want a complete, true assessment of a person, you can't just look at a single point. You have to assess how they function across various different domains.
Moving on to Section 3, the 5 psychological domains. Let's look at how this builds into the 5 specific areas psychologists actually use to capture that complete picture of a person. The very first domain is intelligence. Intelligence tests give us a global measure of a person's general cognitive competence. This includes things like their ability to profit from schooling. Generally speaking, students with lower intelligence test scores might not do quite as well in school-related exams. But, and this is a super important distinction to make, a person's ultimate success in life is not associated only with their intelligence test scores. It is literally just one dimension of our human box.
The second domain we look at is aptitude. Now, while intelligence looks at your general capacity, aptitude looks at your underlying future potential for acquiring skills. Aptitude tests predict what an individual will be able to do if they are given the proper environment and training. For instance, a person with high mechanical aptitude can profit immensely from the right training and do incredibly well as an engineer, or a person with a high language aptitude could easily be trained to become a fantastic writer.
Next up, we have interest. This one is all about preference. Assessing a student's interests is so vital because it helps figure out exactly what subjects or courses they can pursue comfortably and, more importantly, with absolute pleasure. Having real knowledge of a person's interests helps us make choices that promote immense life satisfaction and boost their performance on the job. Let's face it, if you have the aptitude for something but zero interest in it, you're probably not going to thrive.
The fourth domain is personality. Personality tests try to assess an individual's unique, relatively enduring characteristics that make them distinct from everyone else. Is a person outgoing or withdrawn? Are they moody or are they emotionally stable? Connecting this right back to our earlier example, is Harish dominant or is he submissive? By formally assessing these relatively enduring traits, we can much better explain an individual's past behavior and accurately predict how they're going to behave in the future.
And the fifth and final major domain is values. Values are basically those enduring beliefs that set a dominant internal standard for a person. They literally guide a person's actions in life, and they dictate how they judge others. When we do a value assessment, we're trying to determine a person's dominant ideals, whether those happen to be political, religious, social, or economic.
All right, Section 4, Methods of Measurement. So now that we know what attributes and domains we're actually looking for, we need to understand the tools used to measure them. In psychology, there are 5 primary assessment methods. First, you have the psychological test. This is your classic, objective, standardized measure. Next is the interview, which is all about seeking information on a one-to-one basis. Then we have the case study, which is a really in-depth dive into an individual's unique history. Fourth is observation, which means systematically recording natural behavior exactly as it happens. And finally, self-report, where a person provides factual info about themselves. All of this theory is fascinating, sure, but here is a big question for you. How do we actually apply this information in the real world? Why go through all this effort to measure the mind? Well, the answer depends entirely on our purpose. The ultimate goal of psychological assessment is to choose the exact right attribute to evaluate so we can actively help people. If we want to help a weak student perform better in exams, we don't look at their values, we assess their intellectual strengths and weaknesses. If a person is failing to adjust socially with their family or neighborhood, we assess their personality characteristics. And for a poorly motivated person, we'd assess their interests and preferences to find out what actually sparks their drive. You absolutely have to pick the right tool for the right job. Which leaves us with this final thought. We make informal assessments every single day without even realizing it. But human beings are incredibly complex. We're not just our intelligence or our interests or our personality traits alone. We are the multidimensional combination of all of these things. So, the next time you quickly label someone as dominant or smart, ask yourself, are you seeing their whole multidimensional box, or are you just looking at a single point? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the fascinating dimensions of the human mind.